My husband died in a car crash while trying to buy strawberries for me, leaving no intact body. At the funeral, I was overwhelmed with grief when a group of debt collectors suddenly burst in. Only then did I learn that my husband had millions in debt under his name. Filled with guilt, I tearfully agreed to take on the debt and vowed to fulfill my husband's filial duties. Afterwards, I first donated a kidney to my mother-in-law who had cancer. Then I sold my own house and car to help my husband repay part of his debts, to ensure my mother-in-law's happiness in her later years and to repay the remaining debts. I worked myself to the bone for over a decade until I was completely drained. But at the brink of my death, my supposedly deceased husband returned home with a beautiful woman. Only then did I realize that years ago, my husband had actually faked his death. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day my husband died in a car accident. 1. Darling, wait at home for a while, and you'll have the freshest strawberries this afternoon. This is why I love you. If it were someone else's husband, who would be this good? Strawberries are so expensive now. Many pregnant women crave them but can't bring themselves to buy them. My husband, Henry Chen, said this while putting on his shoes with his back to me. Hearing this, I suddenly turned to look at the mirror beside me. The reflection showed someone healthy and youthful, nothing like the person who had been tormented for over a decade by creditors, mother-in-law Fang Qingying, and sister-in-law Freya Chen. I took several deep breaths and accepted the fact that I had been reborn, in my previous life. Henry Chen also used the excuse of buying strawberries for me, emotionally blackmailing me by telling me how good he was to me and how much he loved me. At the time, I was foolishly moved. Little did I expect that instead of getting strawberries that afternoon, I received a call from the traffic police. It turned out Henry Chen had been in a car accident. His vehicle lost control, plunged off a cliff, and exploded, leaving no trace of his remains. The police searched thoroughly but only found a little finger. At the funeral, when the lawyer walked in, I learned that I was actually Henry Chen's sole heir. Thinking about how kind Henry Chen had been to me, I was overwhelmed with grief, almost wishing I could follow Henry Chen in death. But before I could do anything, numerous loan agencies rushed in demanding repayment. The total amount shockingly exceeded 10 million. While I was hesitating, Fang Qingying and Freya Chen pointed fingers at me during the funeral, blaming me for Henry Chen's death, saying it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't insisted on eating strawberries. I became the guilty one, overwhelmed with guilt. I agreed to repay Henry Chen's debts and silently vowed to fulfill his filial duties in his stead, so I sold my premarital assets to settle part of the debt. But then Fang Qingying was diagnosed with kidney failure and needed a transplant to survive. 2. After testing, I happened to be a match. So I lay on the operating table again, donating a kidney with a heart full of atonement. The days that followed felt like living in a nightmare every day. The pressure of debt weighed so heavily on me that I could barely breathe. Fang Qingying and Freya Chen didn't work and relied on me to support them, often resorting to hitting and scolding me. Whenever I failed to meet their expectations, they would cry and say, "You killed Henry, and now you want to drive us to our deaths too." Over 10 years passed like this. By the time the debts were mostly repaid, I was already drained and nearing death. I wasn't afraid of death. Instead, I smiled, knowing that at least when I reached the other side, I could face Henry Chen without guilt. But I'm not dead yet when I see Henry Chen walking through the door with a beautiful woman in his arms, their hands holding a child about 10 years old. At the sight of me clinging to life, the woman frowns at Henry Chen. "Didn't you say she was dying? Why did you make me come back before she's even dead? How unlucky." Henry Chen looks at me impatiently, then turns to Fang Qingying and Freya Chen. "What's going on here?" Fang Qingying sneers coldly. "She probably thinks she's something special. I specifically called you back to show her how stupid she's been all these years. How fun it is to crush her spirit." I moved my parched lips, but no words came out, only feeling a surge of blood rushing to my head before sinking into boundless darkness. I gathered my thoughts and flashed Henry Chen a smile. "Yes, you're the best. Be careful on your way, and I'll be waiting for you at home." After seeing Henry Chen off, I immediately went downstairs and bought a lottery ticket for next week's draw at a nearby shop. The winning numbers of this lottery coincidentally matched mine and Henry Chen's wedding anniversary. At the time, I had just learned about the debt, and the draw results were being announced on TV, so I remembered them vividly. Perhaps this is what they call fate, holding the lottery results in my hand, in this lifetime. I'm not only going to break free from Henry Chen and make the Chen family pay for their deeds in the previous life, but more importantly, I'm going to live splendidly. 3. What happened next was the same as in the previous life. I retrieved Henry Chen's severed finger and held a funeral. The only difference was that last time, I was heartbroken and wept bitterly, but this time, I couldn't shed a single tear. Once most of the relatives and friends had arrived, it was time for the show to begin. I had just picked up a tissue soaked in essential balm to wipe my eyes when tears instantly gushed out, and I wept bitterly while pouring out my sorrow. Henry, how am I supposed to go on now that you're gone? I regret it so much. I knew you were rushing back to see Mom because of her kidney failure, yet I let you drive alone. I should have gone with you. Relatives chimed in with words of comfort, urging me not to grieve too much, but I shook my head. No, it's all my fault. When Mom called to inform us about the illness, I should have gone too. I shouldn't have stayed away just because Mom and my sister don't like me and always scold me. The relatives exchanged glances, seemingly surprised to learn that Fang Qingying and Freya Chen were actually such people behind the scenes. What nonsense are you spouting? Freya Chen's voice came from the doorway, accompanied by Fang Qingying. Both knew Henry Chen's death was fake, so they weren't particularly grief-stricken. Additionally, Fang Qingying wasn't feeling well, which caused their late arrival. Little did they expect to walk in and hear me spreading malicious rumors. Fang Qingying staggered over to me, trembling. Henry only got into that accident because he went to buy strawberries for you. Your gluttony killed Henry. And you dare pin all the blame on me. If Henry knew this in the afterlife, how heartbroken he would be. Freya Chen snorted coldly. It's all because of you. You're always ordering my brother around to buy this and that. Strawberries are your favorite fruit. Right before the accident, he was still on the phone with me, saying he was buying fruit for you. Sobbing, I put on a guilty expression. Mom, if saying this makes you feel better, I can accept your version of events. Saying this was almost the same as saying nothing. Especially with my aggrieved expression making everyone more prone to overthinking, Freya Chen directly rushed up and slapped me. What kind of manipulative act are you putting on here? My brother died because of you. After taking the slap, I stood up abruptly with an expression of unbearable humiliation. Then what do you want me to do? Henry fell off the cliff on the road that was the only way to see you all. You insisted on talking about buying strawberries. What strawberries are there in this season? Even if there were, there's no need to go up the mountain. You can buy them at any supermarket. I was stating facts, but in my past life, I was too grief-stricken to think much about it. I paused before continuing. Besides, neither you nor Mom ever told me about Mom's illness. If it wasn't Henry who told me, then who could it have been? I've already been willing to take the blame for Henry's death for you all. What more do you want? Do you want me to die alongside Henry? Ignoring everyone's attempts to stop me, I acted as if I was about to run into a wall. Henry, walk slowly on the road to the underworld. Wait for me. Fang Qingying and Freya Chen certainly couldn't let me run into the wall. After all, they were still counting on me to repay the money and cure Fang Qingying's illness. The two were so anxious they were scratching their heads, and finally Fang Qingying had to admit, yes, Henry was visiting me when he got into the car accident. The responsibility lies with me. Freya Chen also said through gritted teeth, yes, it was our fault. The relatives were all pointing fingers at Fang Qingying and Freya Chen, neither daring to lift their heads. Only then did I calm down. Isn't this just emotional blackmail? Who can't do that? The funeral had just reached its halfway point when a lawyer in a suit appeared, holding some documents and asking, excuse me, who here is Rose Qin? 5. Before I could speak, Fang Qingying and Freya Chen shouted loudly, here, Rose Qin is here, I can't wait any longer. The lawyer confirmed my identity and directly produced Henry Chen's will. According to Mr. Henry Chen's will, all the deposits under his name are left to you. I lowered my head. Holding the will, such a paltry sum was hardly worth making a fuss over. My premarital assets far exceeded this amount. I glanced at the doorway, where numerous debt collectors had already gathered, all waiting for me to sign so they could demand payment. Fang Qingying grew impatient. Rose, hurry up and sign. Once it's done, Henry can rest easy. Freya Chen also nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, once you sign it, we can proceed with the funeral. However, I shook my head. I can't accept it. What Henry was most worried about before his death must have been Mom and my sister. I'm willing to give up Henry's inheritance and leave it for Mom's medical treatment. Before Fang Qingying and Freya Chen could voice their objections, I continued. Moreover, while Henry was alive, almost all his income went to supporting Mom and my sister. I believe if he were still here now, he would undoubtedly want everything to be left for Mom's treatment. The relatives couldn't help but give me thumbs up. Feeling somewhat shy, I signed to confirm my renunciation of the inheritance rights. That's how the law works. Since Henry Chen's debts weren't used for family expenses and I was unaware of them, as long as I gave up the inheritance, I naturally wouldn't be responsible for Henry's debts. According to the inheritance law, since I waived my right to inherit, the next in line would be Fang Qingying and Freya Chen. Naturally, the two of them began deferring to each other, neither willing to accept it. However, the creditors couldn't wait any longer. Without even waiting for the two to sign, they barged in directly. Henry Chen owes so much money. You two must repay us. 6. The two were immediately surrounded by the creditors. Fang Qingying quickly pointed at me. Make her pay back the money. She has money in a house. She's Henry Chen's wife. I looked bewildered and grabbed the lawyer from earlier, asking. I waived my inheritance rights. Do I still need to repay the debts? The lawyer shook his head. No, you don't. I sighed. Mom, little sister, were you just trying to get me to sign the inheritance papers earlier because you already knew about these debts? I thought you were being kind-hearted, but I never expected you. I didn't continue speaking, but everyone already knew what I was about to say. Freya Chen pushed aside the creditors and said to me arrogantly, this was your joint debt to begin with, so of course you should be the one to repay it. What's more, my brother was. Freya Chen couldn't finish her sentence because her original line was supposed to be, what's more, Henry Chen died because of me. But after all the commotion I'd just caused, Henry Chen's cause of death had long since changed to something else. The lawyer timely intervened. Joint debts require both signatures and must be used for shared expenses to be valid. Currently, none of these IOUs bear Ms. Chen's name. Freya Chen looked as if struck by lightning. She threw herself at my feet, clutching my pants leg and sobbing, sister-in-law, Mom and I simply can't come up with this much money to repay the debts. Don't you own a house? Why don't you sell yours to cover part of it first? The audacity was truly astounding. I looked at her puzzled and asked, little sister, don't you and Mom also live in a house? Its value should be higher than mine. Why not sell your own place instead? Fang Qingying didn't quite catch everything, but she heard enough about selling her house and immediately shrieked, no one is selling my house. Where would I live if it's sold? Do you expect me to end up on the streets? 7. No matter what the two said, the creditor remained unmoved, simply staring at them and demanding payment. The two also followed my lead, saying they wanted to renounce their inheritance rights. We don't want the inheritance rights. We're just like Rose Chen. That's right. We were also unaware of our brother's loan. We have no obligation to repay it. Unfortunately, it's useless. During the preparations for the funeral, I investigated and found out that many of Henry Chen's loans were guaranteed by Fang Qingying and Freya Chen. In fact, both of them even took substantial commissions from these loans. This is why, in my previous life, they faked their deaths and emotionally blackmailed me into repaying the debts. Because if I didn't repay them, they would have been the ones forced to pay. The Chen family played me for a fool. They sold me out, and I was still counting the money for them. Hearing the two claim ignorance, the creditors immediately produced screenshots and transaction records showing Henry's transfers to Fang Qingying and Freya Chen. Their faces turned pale. How could you possibly have gotten these so quickly? Following normal procedures would have taken ages, but with my help, it was done in minutes. Wiping my swollen eyes, irritated by medicated oil, I stood aside and said, Mom, little sister, How could you enable Henry to take out loans like this? Now there's nothing I can do to help. You'll have to repay this money yourselves." A voice emerged from the crowd. "Rose Chin, you're utterly vicious. No wonder Henry would rather keep a mistress and father illegitimate children outside than stay with you." Everyone turned to look, but no matter how hard they searched, they couldn't find the person who had spoken. What? Henry actually betrayed me. Unable to bear this blow, I rolled my eyes and fainted outright. 8. By the time I woke up, everything had already been settled. Without me, the foolish scapegoat, Fang Qingying, and Freya Chen were forced to sign and acknowledge these debts. They had considered asking relatives to persuade me. But the mistress scandal at the funeral made everyone believe that staying out of this family's affairs was the best choice for me. So not only did no one come to speak up for them, but many even took the opportunity to kick them while they were down. A few days later, while I was packing at home, Freya Chen knocked on my door. I didn't give her a warm welcome, considering how viciously she had guilt-tripped me in my past life. Freya Chen came in just like before, sitting directly on the sofa without even taking off her shoes. "As you know, Mom has kidney failure. Now both Mom and I have been kicked out of the house. Mom's in the hospital, and I have nowhere to stay. So I plan to move in here." I gave a non-committal amham and said, "Fine, anyway. I've already sold this place. When the new landlord comes in a few days, whether they'll let you stay or not is none of my business." Perhaps my meek demeanor made Freya Chen think I'd reverted to being the same pushover as before. She snorted coldly. "That's more like it. Let me tell you, Mom's kidney failure was already bad, and after all the chaos at the funeral, her condition has gotten worse. You and Mom share the same blood type. If you have any conscience left, you should go get tested for compatibility." I suddenly burst out laughing. Freya Chen looked at me puzzled. "What are you laughing at?" "I'm laughing at how foolish you are. Your brother is having an affair outside, and you and your mother have been tormenting me in every way. Why on earth would you think I'd be willing to help you?" Freya Chen stared at me as if she'd seen a ghost. "You're twisting the truth." I made a shushing gesture. "Stop talking nonsense. It's clear who's twisting the truth. Whether your brother went to buy strawberries for me or deliberately went up the mountain just to fall to his death, I believe both you and your mother know the answer." 9. Freya Chen had no idea how to refute me and didn't dare to offend me casually. After all, she still needed me to have a crisis of conscience and help them repay the debt. Even if I didn't pay, she could still mooch off me at my place, making me cater to her every need: food, clothing, shelter, and even her daily routines. As for whether to donate a kidney to Fang Qingying, she's so selfish that she obviously couldn't care less. Having figured this out, she shot me a glare and went straight into the guest room. After Freya Chen entered the guest room, I didn't bother cleaning up anymore. After all, the lottery had been drawn, and I was already a multimillionaire. These little things were no longer necessary for me. I picked up my bag, turned around, and left the house. Blocking all contact with Freya Chen and Fang Qingying, they wouldn't dare escalate things too much. Afraid someone might discover Henry Chen's faked death, I claimed my prize, bought a luxurious villa, and moved right in, doing everything I could to make up for the suffering of my past life. My days were spent in absolute indulgence. However, Fang Qingying and Freya Chen weren't so fortunate, according to what the private investigator told me. Fang Qingying's condition deteriorated rapidly and she has now fallen into a coma. However, because she lacks money and Freya Chen refuses to discharge her, she can only lie in the hospital corridor, waiting it out. Meanwhile, Freya Chen was also evicted by the new landlord of my old house, and she made quite a scene, nearly ending up at the police station. She called me with a barrage of accusations and tearful complaints before reluctantly leaving. But I know these are just the beginning. There will be even more troublesome matters awaiting me. As if echoing my thoughts, early that morning, the housekeeper brought in 3 guests. It was Freya Chen and someone dressed like a lawyer, and beside them stood Henry Chen, who had risen from the dead. I curled the corners of my lips. "Henry Chen, you've finally shown up. All my efforts to flaunt my wealth weren't in vain." 10. The moment Henry Chen saw me, he immediately dropped to his knees. He clung tightly to my leg, crying so hard that tears and snot were everywhere. I steadied my emotions and asked, Henry, weren't you already dead? Henry Chen wiped his snot haphazardly on my silk dress. I'm sorry, honey, I was foolish to choose faking my death, but I regretted it almost immediately. I missed you so much, so I came back. Henry Chen tugged at Freya Chen's skirt as he spoke. Freya Chen had been staring at the villa since she entered and only snapped out of it when he tugged. Sis, my brother truly loves you, and Mom and I really like you too. Please come back soon. Besides, seeing how nice this house is now, paying off my brother's debts must be easy for you, right? I nodded. Yes, a debt of millions is nothing to me now. Funny how they say promotion, wealth, and a dead wife, but for me, it's dead husband and newfound wealth. Seems like all the good luck has come my way, but I won't repay it for you, because we currently have no legal relationship anymore. Upon hearing this, Henry Chen quickly stood up. Lawyer Liu, please explain this to my wife. Lawyer Liu cleared his throat. Actually, Ms. Chen, according to Article 51 of the Civil Code, the marital relationship of a person declared deceased is terminated from the date the declaration of death takes effect. If the declaration of death is revoked, the marital relationship automatically resumes from the date the revocation takes effect. Therefore, Mr. Henry Chen's marriage to you has now been restored. I covered my mouth in surprise and let out an audible gasp. Henry Chen and Freya Chen were overjoyed to see me embarrassed. But their expressions changed instantly when I spoke my next words. 11. Henry, it wasn't until after your death that I discovered what I thought was a perfect marriage was actually full of deceit and infidelity. That's why I chose to remarry after you passed away. I smiled and said, after all, the best way to move on from a relationship is to start a new one. Henry Chen shook his head with a dark expression and replied, I don't believe it. You must be lying to me. I waved my hand, signaling the nanny to call my husband Huang Yunan, who was already waiting at the stairwell with our marriage certificate in hand. Before the nanny could even go upstairs, he strode down with his long legs. He proudly showed the marriage certificate to Henry Chen, even cheerfully shaking his hand. Henry, it's truly a miracle. Someone coming back from the dead. What a shame. Though, Rose and I are already married, so your marital relationship is now void. Lawyer Liu nodded awkwardly. Yes. If someone remarries, the previous marriage is legally terminated. Henry Chen and Freya Chen were stunned. They had assumed that once they returned, all they needed to do was beg me a little, and I would soften, obediently returning the money, or at the very least, allowing the marriage to continue so they could keep strutting around my house, throwing their weight around. But they could never have imagined that I would get married so quickly, Henry Chen said sarcastically. I loved you so much and obeyed your every wish. How could you get married before my body was even cold? Before I could speak, Huang Yunan looked as if he had seen a ghost. What, you're a ghost? Henry Chen couldn't find words to refute, but Freya Chen gritted her teeth and said, you shameless woman. You must have been cheating long ago to move on so seamlessly. She gave Huang Yunan a flattering glance, smoothed her hair, and said, handsome, you've been fooled by her. She's only after your money. You should get divorced as soon as possible. 12. Huang Yunan waved his hand dismissively. You've misunderstood. This house isn't mine. It's Rose's. What? How is that possible? Henry Chen and Freya Chen exclaimed in unison, seeing their expressions. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. That's right. After you died, I won the lottery, so I came into money. I sighed. It's fate, really. If you hadn't faked your death in a moment of foolishness, this life would all be yours now. I could have easily paid off all your debts too. I pointed at the Land Rover parked in the yard. I remember you saying this car was every man's dream car. You could have lived that dream. If we could see Henry Chen and Freya Chen's guts right now, they'd undoubtedly be green with envy. Henry Chen realized he couldn't gain any advantage over me through legal means. His eyes darted around as he said, honey, I know my sins are too grave to deserve your forgiveness. But we've known each other for 10 years and been married for 3. There must still be some affection between us. I'm not asking you to pay my debts anymore. Just please save my mother. After all, your mother is also my mother. The woman you've called Mom for 3 years is about to pass away. Can you really bear to be so heartless? I nodded. Yes, I can. I've always remembered what your mother told me. Don't think that just because you married into this family, you're truly one of the Chens. Don't act recklessly here. I'm not your birth mother, and I have no reason to indulge you." Henry Chen and Freya Chen tried to say more, but I hushed them. Honestly, if you're truly filial, you'd be better off spending time comforting your dying mother now. Or hurry up and get tested for compatibility. After all, organ donations between relatives have a high success rate. With that, I smiled and had the housekeeper show them out. 13. The three of us walked out the door, and Huang Yunan gave me a thumbs up. "Rose, how did you know Henry Chen would definitely come back looking for you?" Huang Yunan didn't seem like her usual self at all. Instead, she sat on the sofa with a flirtatious air. I took off my dress, leaving only my undershirt, and squeezed onto the sofa with Huang Yunan. "I know Henry Chen too well. Whether Freya Chen died or Fang Qingying died, he would never come back. He would definitely choose to take the money and run off with his mistress, but if he did that, he could never make up for the harm he caused me. So I deliberately spread the news that I had struck it rich and hid the fact that I got married, waiting for him to walk right into my trap." Huang Yunan leaned on my shoulder. "Oh my God, Rose, you're amazing. If I didn't have a boyfriend, I'd totally marry you." I rolled my eyes. Huang Yunan is my classmate and neighbor, and we've always had a great relationship, especially since we even share the same sexual orientation, which is precisely why he agreed immediately when I proposed marriage. I've long been aware of the legal regulation Attorney Liu mentioned. If I don't completely break free from Henry Chen, he'll remain a ticking time bomb hanging over my head, leaving me forever uneasy. Huang Yunan snatched the grapes from my hand. "Wait, but what if Henry Chen runs away again?" I gestured toward my phone with my chin. "Don't worry, I've notified every single creditor." Thinking of this, I smiled and said, "Not only that, but I also found someone to give him advice on how to make money." Huang Yunan shook his head. "Rose, you're terrifying. I don't dare divorce you anymore. I'm afraid you'll ruin me." "Yes, I've been clever since childhood, never forgetting the slightest grievance. It was only in my past life that love clouded my judgment, blinding me and making me deaf, allowing those three ungrateful wolves to manipulate me so easily." 14. Following the kind-hearted advice, Henry Chen didn't disappear again. Instead, he and Freya Chen gathered their many creditors for a meeting. As for what exactly was said or done, I'm not entirely sure. I only know that when we went in there were two of us, but when we came out, there was only one. Freya Chen vanished without a trace. In my past life, after Henry Chen went missing, Freya Chen nearly tortured me to death. After I donated a kidney to Fang Qingying, when I was in extreme discomfort, she not only ignored me but also demanded that I do her laundry and cooking, even forcing me to attend to the finicky and troublesome Fang Qingying late at night. I suffered multiple infections and nearly died. After I recovered, Freya Chen, fully aware of our family's massive debts, still insisted I buy her expensive cosmetics and luxury items. I did resist and refuse, but whenever I did, she would immediately hit me. My body was weak, and I was no match for her. She also said I deserved all this, claiming that if it weren't for me, Henry Chen would have bought it for her. When I tried to excuse myself by saying I had no money, Freya Chen even suggested I go out and sell my body. "You're pretty and young anyway. Make some money while you're still young. Mom and I are counting on your money to live, so my hatred for Henry Chen is far less than what I feel for Fang Qingying and Freya Chen. After all, he just disappeared suddenly. The ones who truly tormented and hurt me were always Fang Qingying and Freya Chen. But Fang Qingying herself no longer had kidneys to donate. She was already on the verge of collapse. I didn't even need to lift a finger, so now I'm using Freya Chen's own ideas against Freya Chen, and I think it's working quite well. However, one Freya Chen clearly isn't enough to give Henry Chen much breathing room. Soon, another kind-hearted soul came up with another idea for Henry Chen. 15. Just a few days later, I received an invitation from Henry Chen. Of course, I didn't want to go, but Henry Chen's message to me was, "If you don't come, I'll ruin your reputation." It was only then that I went to meet him out of fear. Henry Chen chose an outdoor location for our meeting. The area was deserted, with nothing but some shrubs around and hardly anyone nearby. He also demanded that I throw my bag far away and place my phone on the table. Only after confirming that I had no recording devices on me or in my shoes did he finally sit down. Frowning, I looked at Henry Chen with disdain and asked, "What do you want from me?" Henry Chen didn't say anything but directly handed me some evidence and call recordings. I looked at him puzzled, but his expression grew increasingly unpleasant. Henry Chen seemed to find great satisfaction in this and couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Did you really think I was that stupid, that I couldn't come up with any solutions? This so-called evidence supposedly proves my awareness of Henry Chen's debt situation, including his fake death, and even mentions that my lottery ticket was purchased by Henry Chen." Trembling with anger, I said, "These are all fake. I had no idea about any of this. These recordings and chat logs aren't mine at all." Henry Chen nodded. "Right, it's fake, the recording is AI generated, but as long as I post these things online and put my dying mother in the live stream, everyone will believe me, not you. After all, who would choose to believe someone as fickle as you, who remarried before her husband was even dead? Once everyone believes me, I'll take you to court, with such a huge scandal and your suspicious behavior. The worst the court will do is rule to split the debt and your lottery winnings equally. By then, you'll be broke and your reputation ruined. That handsome husband of yours will surely divorce you." 16. I struggled to calm my emotions. "So, what do you want?" Henry Chen saw that I had taken the bait. 20 million. 10 million I'll use to pay off debts, and the other 10 million I'll use for living expenses. Listen, don't rush to refuse me. What I'm asking for isn't much at all. And if it weren't for you withholding the money, my sister wouldn't have what?" I pressed. Henry Chen didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "Tell me, how does a woman earn money the fastest? But then again, this is what she deserves. As my sister, she should pay this price." I seemed startled by his words and fell silent for a moment. "I can give you the money, but my funds are tied up in the bank. I can't come up with that much right away. I can only give you 1 million for now." Henry Chen didn't expect things to be so straightforward and got a bit carried away. "You must give me everything within a month." I nodded in agreement but demanded he delete the evidence right in front of me. Henry Chen called me an idiot. "How can I delete anything without getting the money? Hurry up and pay, then I'll delete it." Still uneasy, I hesitated and agonized until Henry Chen took the initiative to draft an agreement, promising to delete everything and never bother me again once he got the money. Holding the agreement, I finally felt at ease and transferred 1 million to Henry Chen on the spot. After Henry Chen left with the money, a man dressed in green ghillie suit crawled out from the bushes, groaning. He took off the suit and handed me the action camera from his phone. "Rose, I did all this for you. You have to go shopping with me properly." I nodded and blew him a kiss. "But first, we need to report this to the police." 17. Playing the role of a woman who had just been blackmailed, I was completely drained and practically clung to Huang Yunan. Huang Yunan dramatically pleaded with the officer to ensure justice was served for me. He was quite articulate and laid out the whole incident clearly in just a few words. I knew Henry Chen was up to no good, so I deliberately followed my wife, who would have thought I'd accidentally capture his entire blackmail scheme. The evidence was conclusive, and the amount involved was excessively large. The police immediately froze Henry Chen's bank account used for receiving funds and swiftly apprehended him. When arrested by the police, he still looked bewildered. "I didn't break any laws, I just owe money, I'm just a deadbeat." Only after arriving at the police station did he realize I was the one who reported him, fueling his resentment even more. "How could you go back on your word? How could you do this to me? This isn't extortion. She's my wife, her money is mine." Huang Yunan seized the moment to interject. "Officer, he was already dead. I married my wife after his death, so their marriage was long invalidated." The police wanted me to say a few words too, but I suddenly went crazy and shouted, "Don't sell me. I don't want the money anymore. He'll sell me to Africa to be. I didn't finish my sentence. However, the police sensed the scent of a major case. After their repeated reassurances, I reluctantly revealed that Freya Chen had already been sold to Africa. I didn't know at first, but today he hinted at it vaguely. I got scared, so I hired a private detective to investigate, and that's how I found out. Sobbing, I threw myself into Huang Yunan's arms. Henry Chen clenched his teeth but was powerless to do anything. I roughly calculated that the extortion amount was huge and the circumstances were severe. It could result in at least 5 years in prison. As for human trafficking, that's even worse, probably around 10 years or more, 18. Due to the high number of cases and the time needed to investigate the evidence, Fang Qingying didn't live to see Henry Chen sentenced. She died alone and desolate in her rented apartment. Rumor has it her body wasn't discovered until it started rotting and the neighbor's dog barked day and night. In the end, no one came forward to claim her body. As a kind-hearted soul, I sent her to the crematorium. Brought her ashes home, and then promptly flushed them all down the drain. A shitty person deserves nothing better than to keep company with shit. During these 6 months, the police collaborated with law enforcement agencies from multiple countries in an attempt to rescue Freya Chen and the Mistress. The Mistress, heavily pregnant and with a vacant stare, was rescued and brought back to the country. It was said she was riddled with illnesses, and no one knew who the father of her unborn child was. But at least she survived. Freya Chen wasn't so fortunate. Rumor had it that shortly after going abroad, her overly volatile temper led to her being tortured to death. One wonders if, in her final moments, she resented her beloved brother. 6 months later, Henry Chen was sentenced. Though the situation was more severe than I had imagined, not only had he sent Freya Chen away, but he had also disposed of his mistress abroad. Therefore, with multiple crimes combined, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Handsome, fair-skinned, and good-looking. It goes without saying that he wouldn't have an easy time behind bars, not to mention his crimes were particularly heinous. 19. 2 more years passed. Having achieved my revenge and living an overwhelmingly happy life, I kindly went to visit Henry Chen. It's only been 2 years since we last met, but Henry Chen looks even more haggard and aged than he did over a decade later in his previous life. He's become so thin that he's almost unrecognizable. His face covered in wounds big and small, his wrists scarred all over, mostly from what appear to be bite marks. A chunk of his ear is missing too. Seems like life hasn't been kind to him at all. Henry Chen stared at me with eyes full of despair. What are you here for? To laugh at me? I shook my head. I came to tell you that your mother died at home. I went to collect her remains, but I accidentally dropped her ashes into the toilet. Henry Chen showed no reaction. Oh, I see. I hummed in agreement. Then let me tell you something you don't know. For example, the person who gave you advice and led you to make these mistakes. Do you know who it is? Only then did Henry Chen react. Looking at me sharply. How do you know someone gave me advice? Was it you? You did this on purpose, didn't you? I smiled but didn't answer. Instead, I winked at him, making it clear. Yes, you're absolutely right. He couldn't help but sneer. Do you think your life is so happy? Let me tell you. I've already found out. Your husband is a damn homosexual. He's only after your money, and sooner or later, he'll abandon you and leave you with diseases. I answered the same as Henry Chen. I know. Our marriage was fake from the start. I did it specifically because I knew you weren't dead. As for the assets, don't worry, we signed a prenup. Tilda. Upon hearing this, Henry Chen spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted. This was something Fang Qingying taught me, to kill not just the body but also the spirit. It really works, and damn, does it feel good.